The downstream impacts of these third-party vendor risk assessments is that the third parties themselves depend on third parties, and those third parties depend on third parties. So we have the concept of fourth parties and fifth parties and sixth parties, and an expectation that everybody in the supply chain is both identified and doing what's expected from a security and risk management perspective. So the impact can be significant to an organization who has limited resources to identify and assess those initial third-party vendors. Trying to assess anyone beyond that becomes cumbersome, if not impossible. There are options, obviously, to enforce contractual language, liability through that language, so that instead of performing the assessments, the liability is at least covered. But that doesn't negate the risk. The risk of a compromise or a breach is still present. So if I have a small team who's tasked with assessing a large number of third-party vendors, understanding that I may not have the time or resources or tools to automate or simplify some of those tasks quite yet, first step that I would follow would be some sort of data classification or vendor criticality ranking. We have to be able to group the vendors so that when it comes to investing time and resources, we're being responsible stewards of that money, and that we're putting the time and effort toward the vendors that represent the most critical business processes or who have access to or processing some of the organization's most sensitive data. Beyond that, we can start to build out smaller repeatable processes that may be more light touch, lightweight, but still provide value based on, again, that criticality or that data classification. While a vendor risk assessment checklist could have dozens, if not hundreds, of questions, prioritizing the questions so that you have a handful that are relevant to every vendor is key. The top three that I might include would be around access management, vulnerability management, and some evidence that they're engaging someone to help them implement security controls on a larger scale. I want to know that usernames are provisioned and, more importantly, deprovisioned when someone leaves the company in a timely fashion. I want to know that the technical vulnerabilities that might exist in their environment are being identified and appropriately managed. And when it comes to implementing security controls, it's not one size fits all. We have vendors that may want to align with the ISO 27000 series, and we may have a set of vendors who have never touched information security frameworks or standards. So having a third party come into their organization independent of our own organization, looking at the security controls they have in place, determining whether or not they're appropriate for what that vendor does, and then making recommendations to help that vendor implement more appropriate security controls, I think has tremendous value. And if we're asking about those three, access management, vulnerability management, and third-party attestations, I think we're covering a significant portion of the risk that would be adopted by engaging with that vendor.